What gives you hope?
Not much. Not much. Um, yeah. I mean, right now, not much, honestly.
Can you tell us more?
I mean, if it's a general question, I'm sure this happens to you now and then. You are at like a work event or a table, and somebody comes up with really stupid, ice-breaking questions, and then people, especially in America, tell you how successful they are and what's on their plate, and what they're looking forward to. And I was put through one of these recently. I said, well, we're very close to World War III. Most countries have really incompetent, corrupt people in charge, or both. Um, there seems to be a big crisis of democracy. By the way, I think psychometrics is a lot like democracy. It's better than the alternatives, really hard to get right, and there's a lot of shitty versions of it, you know? And people, will gravitate towards alternatives, which is why we have to stay united and protect this field. And I think I'm not an optimist, but I still have a glimmer of hope that human ingenuity can find a way to bounce back. And then there's AI, which is like, a seven-store building falling on us right now. So, it's like this line that the light at the end of the tunnel might be a train coming our way.
And I thought Eastern Europeans are pessimistic. Mhm. So, any questions for Thomas? Okay.
Trying to lift the mood. Uh, with reference to your book about, is this working? About, right, right. With reference to your book about why inadequate men become leaders, is that the title? Incompetent men. um, is there any evidence that the book has made a difference?
No, no. And for those of you who have the book and maybe have read it, uh, the acknowledgments are to all the incompetent men who will continue to be not just leaders, but the main sales force for this publication. And it's, you know, so yeah, no, I don't think. I mean, the book came out in 2019. The original article, which was a response to Sheryl Sandberg's Lean In book. Did anybody read Careless People, by the way? So you can see the real Sheryl Sandberg in, yeah, okay, yeah. No surprises there, but anyway. So the original article with that title came out in 2013. So it predated a lot of the famous, because it's not just, it's not about males or incompetence. It's about that specific type of deluded narcissist who manages to fool others because they have fooled themselves. And that is, statistically more likely to happen in men than women. Uh, so there was a 7-year publication lag between the article, which is the most widely read, downloaded, and shared article in HBR in history. Okay. And the book, I kept on telling the publisher, why don't we turn this article into a book? And they kept on saying, we can't do this. 80% of our readers are male executives. And I said, to which I responded, don't worry, they won't realize it might be about them, because one of the typical features of the profile that the book discusses is lack of self-awareness. Then they decided to do it, and then they said, "Oh, what title do we give it? Should we call it Why Do So Many Incompetent People Become Leaders?" And I said, "Well, from a fairness standpoint, it'll be good to make it as easy for incompetent women to rise to the top as men, but it wouldn't fix the issue." And yes, people say, "Oh, we had Theresa May and other people." Yes, 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 but statistically, they're not. So, and then there was a whole back and forth about whether Trump should be mentioned or not. And he's not mentioned in the book because there's no need. It's the elephant in the room. We had elephants here before. You don't. It's like after the book came out, there were a few papers, including good papers and the Leadership Quarterly Review and us, on playing the Trump card, which basically explains, it illustrates the evolutionary interpretation of the effect. There's a guy called also John Trivers who wrote about the Folly of Fools, the book, why is overconfidence and the optimism bias so pervasive? Not just in men, but in people in general. Because if you bullshit yourself, it's a lot easier to bullshit others. That's true whether you're in a job interview, in a sales pitch, in a client presentation. Normal, rational people would be capable of self-doubt, but in a world in which it's very hard to judge actual competence, especially if you're incompetent yourself, you gravitate towards people who think they're better than they actually are. So, the effect is there. Long-winded advertorial to say the effect is still there.
Thank you. Since you mentioned Trump, there's a psychologist in the US, Stephen Hassan. You may or may not have heard of him. He's written a book called The Cult of Trump. And sorry, thank you. Yeah, I enjoyed his book. We got him to talk at the ABP a number of years ago. When it first came out, he was like, no one would touch him. He was toxic for doing that. Because it was the first time that Trump was elected, and the ABP was even worried about hosting him in case, and then the second time round, suddenly everybody wants to talk to him, and he's on a few TV shows and stuff. Anyway, he knows about cults because he was in one. He was a Mooney, and from the inside out, he kind of knows how to do the cult stuff. I'm curious. So my question is, do you think Trump is in fact running some sort of cult? Would you go that far or not?
No, I think, first of all, Trump is a symptom of Obama, is a direct symptom of Obama, a creation of Obama, right? Obama, who is in many ways a remarkably intelligent, sophisticated, high EQ, high IQ, and, you name it, character, failed as a leader. He couldn't deliver even on half of his premises that inspired many, many people, and it seemed like it'll be a seed chain. And then there was that turning point, where he makes fun of Trump in an event, and then Trump decides to run. So, it's a direct consequence of that, accidental consequence. I think the most, well, for me, the most interesting data point when he was running the second time was a few interviews that I've seen on the run-up of the of the last presidential election, where people say, we know voters, we know he's a crook, we know he's a we know that he's antisocial, we know he's an art, but at least he's honest. And so the bar is so low that people say, and actually, if you think so, my last book, which you have there, is on authenticity. It's impossible he's authentic or not, whether he's more authentic or not. That's the problem with authenticity as a concept. But by most definitions of authenticity, including consistency between what you say and what you do, being true to your values, not caring about what other people think of you, and actually seemingly unfiltered, he's very authentic. Project 2025, for those of you who are, he said exactly what he was going to do, which is out of the Peter Thiel and all his friends. Destroy democracy, accumulate power, run it like a monarchy, attack diversity, attack woke thing, and he's doing everything else. So the people who voted for that are getting what they wanted. That's not so common in most democracies today. Do I like it? No. Do I agree with it? No. But, the democratic system put him there. And I think the reality is that you could say that, by the way, is this being broadcasted somewhere or yeah, everywhere? Yeah, good. Exactly. You could say that the people that voted for him are not going to be better off. And you could say that about Brexit as well. And you could say, but I still think that people always vote with their own best intentions. Nobody votes in a self-destructive way. And I do think that sometimes, you don't have hope to improve. So getting a little bit of cathartic tribalism by insulting the other part is kind of gives you a little bit of a boost. And he's doing that really, really well. He's catering to the best. He is very predictable in a way. Everything he does is catering to his base. And that's like suing the BBC for 1 billion. Does he really care? Is it going to go anywhere? No, whatever. But it's, again, a very important, kind of statement.
Now I've lost hope.
Well, it's only been 1 year, by the way. We have 4 years.
So, by the way, cathartic tribalism.
Yeah.
Anybody wants to publish an album? Sounds like a really good title. So, Helen.
By the way, we had a whole agenda with questions on psychometrics and validity and that. So, yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So it's from
Oh.
the chat. With the rise of artificial intelligence, how
Rise of what?
AI?
Oh.
How important do you believe the evaluation of human intelligence will become again after a slight lack of popularity in workplaces in the past couple of years?
A slight what? Lack of popularity?
Yeah.
Well, this question is so broad, and I'm going to choose to answer something else. Yeah. No, but I think, I don't know if I'm making the correct interpretation here, but I think humans have lost the IQ battle. AI has won. We have, it's interesting to see slides of like inaccuracy, whatever, and the question of whether AI can improve on the prediction. AI 1.0, which is machine learning algorithms, yeah, it's a prediction machine. And the accuracy of that depends on the data that you feed in, but it was pretty impressive already. AI 2.0, which is generative AI, is a production machine. And what it shows is that even things that we consider creative and intellectual are actually very predictable. Stochastic parrot, yes. Mansplaining as a service, yes. Microwave for ideas, yes. All of that. So, and you both alluded to this, things that you thought were very creative can now be done by that. And I mean, you can find errors. The delta for what human expertise and intelligence can add over and above AI is shrinking. And if you have deep expertise, you can use AI really well. Most of us are knowledge workers. We're already paid for using AI. We're paid for using AI better and in a safer way than people who have no expertise. Now, as for IQ as a concept, is an IQ test. People don't like it and they will never like it, but the evidence is there. Since when are people convincible or persuadable through evidence? It's never happened. Authenticity is an IQ test as well. If you love the concept, I'm sorry, but you don't understand basic psychology.
That's
It's an
for the pub.
EQ. It's an EQ that's coming on the pub. Yes.
Yes.
Okay. It's an EQ test as well. If you really think, people want you to be yourself. Good luck getting a job, getting a wife, getting a husband, and yeah. But I think AI is a very humbling human creation. It's amazing, if you look at Kahneman and Tversky, system 1, system 2, proper, right? They didn't need to publish correlations because just describing the effect is so strong that you can replicate it yourself, right? That's an effect. And the main lesson is that although humans are capable of acting rationally, most of the time we don't. We engage or indulge in these heuristics and we think without thinking, which is system 1, it's like fast and furious. And most of the time, we don't actually leverage system 2 thinking, which is analytical, slow, proper thinking. We are so smart that we invented a machine that can do proper thinking for us. So now we can be without thinking at all. That's a bit scary. That's a bit scary. Yeah. Yes.
Glad you raised the Sarah Wynne Williams book. It's a great read and careless people.
Careless people, yes. If you haven't read it, read it. Very good.
It's a really good story written by a Kiwi, so I've got the antipathy and bias.
Yeah.
The question on Sheryl Sandberg Marissa Mayer, the Yahoo CEO, Meg Whitman. In your time with Hogan, in your time with Manpower, I feel that women executives, frankly, probably because there are far fewer of them, have got off a little lightly in some of the behaviors and some of the narcissistic profiling. What could you speak to? Any, obviously confidentiality is key, but
Yeah.
any indexes or trends you've seen on female executive behavior?
I mean, more than the trends, I think it's important to understand that the argument and the theory, if you like, of the book is not about gender. It's about there are behaviors and personality traits and characteristics that are conducive to competent leadership, and they have to do with the opposite of what we see in a Trump or in a Musk. And yeah, they are very successful. Okay, you know, stories sell, but data tell. And there are undervalued qualities like self-awareness, EQ, social skills, integrity, self-control, intelligence, expertise, that ironically don't help people to get those jobs as frequently as they could. So the rules of the game are the rules of the game. So it's unsurprising that when certain women succeed, they outmale males in masculinity. Margaret Thatcher was the same. The only prime minister, I believe, to have 0 women in her cabinet, right? There's a queen bee phenomenon. And unfortunately, and I think, you know, Thatcher actually had moral convictions and was impressive to some degree, whether, you know, it ended up going, you know, but unfortunately, when you optimize for winning the game with certain rules, it's not going to change very much. And then for every queen bee that succeeds, I think it's a disservice for not just the competent women who don't become leaders despite having the right, but also the competent men who are overlooked. You know, so it's about personality. You know, the conclusion of that book and the article and everything that is that the best and only correct gender diversity intervention is to focus on talent, not on gender. And that if you do that, you level the playing field. Because however, whatever you want to look at, you know, it's pretty much 50-50. And the evidence also points to a small but significant female advantage in the traits that I have mentioned. Okay?
Tomas, have you watched Battlestar Galactica?
Have I what?
Battlestar Galactica.
Self?
Battlestar Galactica.
Oh, no.
Well, in the last
Should I?
season, the replicators were able to make themselves look human,
Oh,
but they were still AI.
yeah.
And the humans still won.
Yeah.
Why? Because the main character tricked them to fall in love with them, but she was actually fooling them.
Oh,
So when you say that we are losing the intelligence battle, don't you think we will eventually win the emotional battle? Because AI
Yes. Yes. But that's my hope.
that.
It might be the little bit of optimism in
Yeah.
me. And, you know, I saw you describe, and what there's a great book also, The Most Human Human. Have you read it? It's exactly what you said in the test. It's a guy who enrolls in the most famous Turing test competition and tries to be unanimously identified as a human by judges, right? So he's a Confederate. Experts are interacting with a chatbot or a human, and his goal is to be identified as human by everybody. And already then, 10 years ago, it shows you that you have to engage in artificial behavior to pretend that you're human. It's like, you know, when you have to do these awful cybersecurity tests and pick all the wheels or all the traffic lights or whatever. I mean, I failed that test of humanity multiple times. You know, so according to AI, I'm not so, which is the same. But on a serious note, I think when I say IQ is no longer our USP, maybe because collectively as a species, we're so smart that we invented something that thinks for us. But EQ is still, or the emotional side of things is still important, because people want to feel appreciated by other humans, not by a machines. And, you know, no matter how much AI advances, it will never give a damn. And also, I think that I think that in a world in which we effectively use AI to make more coherent, rational, evidence-based decisions, there is still room for, yeah, I would say, appreciating human serendipity and injecting some element of surprise or creativity in that. Spotify could automate 99% of its artists with the data they have. And let's face it, in some cases, it will be a good thing, right? I mean, an AI version of Taylor Swift, or Ed Sheeran, I mean, okay, I don't want to upset certain people. But even if they automated 100%, it would push humans to create a type of music that isn't there. Same with movies, same with that. But right now, we are a little bit like human intellect and creativity is a bit like the diamond industry. It's impossible to tell whether a diamond is synthetic or natural. There's no equipment, but people still pay a lot more if they think that it's natural. Right now, it's impossible to tell if somebody sends you an email or if you're interacting with somebody in Zoom or whether it's a human or not. It's impossible to know if an article was published or not. But if people think that it's produced by a human, you attribute more value. And I think that might be just irrational and a not very sustainable strategy, a vulnerable strategy, human snobism, but we're still in control. And, I think, so I think, yeah, it might be the emotional side of things. Hi.
I saw you joined Russell Reynolds recently, so congratulations. Well, I'm going to be careful what I say here because we use leadership span, so it'd be great to chat to you about that at some point.
It's a phrase, the safe environment and
yeah,
the
okay,
safe.
yeah, thank you. So yeah, I guess I'm super interested in your thoughts on this. So I worked for a search firm with a talent arm about 10 years ago, and there's a huge tension between those two worlds. Occupational psychology can, in some sort of circles, be considered the antithesis of search because it provides the science for against the CV and the kind of high fee earning work that search consultants do. But I'm super, and search consultancies have gone around gobbling up Oxide consultancies and building out that talent capability.
Yeah.
Like super interested in where you think Russell Reynolds are at on that journey and what's your vision for kind of cracking the competent men at the top?
Executive search as an industry is still, I'm going to say the obvious, but it's very relationship driven. It's very niche and specialized. And actually, it's very data rich, but it's optimized bottom up. And all of the, let's say, the Shrek firms, if you want to use are in essence the same. I mean, Confer is a little bit different because they move downwards and they do a lot of talent assessment. But the other four, they're roughly the same size, and they're optimized. Even if they're 2,000-3,000 people, they're optimized very bottom up, and they function like a bunch of nomadic hunter-gatherer tribes that kill what they eat, and they're heavily incentivized. And a lot of the data is inside of the head of the people. MI, market intelligence, is far more consequential than psychometric assessments or personality profile, etc. If I'm considering Adrian for a job and I know something about him that can't be Googled or isn't in ChatGPT, I have an advantage. And if I can tell a story in the right time of the meeting, then that. Now, the rest, most firms use good psychometrics. It varies a little bit. Psychometrics, it's like the engine of a car. If you're technically sophisticated and knowledgeable, you can tell which engine is better, but nobody gives a shit. They look at the car and they look at the color, etc. Nobody buys a Ferrari because of the features. And so psychometrics has become a hygiene factor. The bigger factor is data. Why? Because actually the clients, and Adrian talked about the clients, which is very important. The clients, especially most of the executive search firm, work a lot with private equity firms. Do we have anybody who's in private equity here? No? Okay. private equity firms have a lot of data on the market, on industry, on business, and on the portfolio companies. And they're pushing the executive search consultants that, what are you going to tell me about, especially in succession planning and internal assessment, what are you going to tell me about these people that I don't know? And I think you mentioned analytics before as a function, and analytics and psychometrics, oxides going to analytics coming from analytics. It's very interesting that most large organizations went through digital transformation, which meant they bought technology that gave them data. Then they hired data scientists to make sense of the data and translate it into insights. Then came AI that automates the passage from data to insights. So you need storytellers to convince people internally, etc. Most people in people analytics departments suffer from the same level of sort of neglect that psychometricians have. They're there in a windowless basement, they can't influence, nobody listens to them, and they have great ammunition and great data and great insights, but if you can't tell the stories, nobody cares. And so, the appetite for data is there, but it's the right insights packaged in the right way, told to the right person at the right time, and if not, nobody cares.
Nice. And talking about the right time, one more question.
Yeah.
I guess ask a question. We suffered from that a little bit around storytelling and sharing what we're doing. So we feel really proud of what we're doing, but not enough people know about it. My question was, who are going to be the winners and losers in terms of embracing the right mindset to survive, knowing as much as we know about the direction of travel? So yeah, who are going to be the winners and losers, but from a mindset kind of point
And
of view?
you're not talking geopolitics, but you're talking about specifically on AI, on what about
in AI, but in organizations.
in organizations?
Yeah, specifically. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, China definitely will win in general, right? And to wrap up the geopolitical commentary here, America hasn't even been the dominant superpower in the world for 100 years. In the history of empires, it might be the shortest lived empire because it takes a lot of, it claims won World War II, which is debatable. A lot of the heavy lifting was done east, and the political power was here, of course, but it definitely influenced, and that was in the 1940s. So we're not even 100 years, and what you're seeing right now, the defining kind of issue is China versus US. Already is shared in GDP adjusted by PPP. China has already overtaken the US, and the AI battle is going to be won by China. Okay. Organizationally, I think everybody is trying to figure out what an AI augmentation strategy looks like. And companies are still hoping that AI is not here to automate the irrelevant, but actually unlock human creativity, boost productivity, etc. So far, AI is basically, I wrote about this, is exposing the BS economy. Is exposing all the bullshit tasks that occupy knowledge workers in a typical. That's why you haven't seen any increases in output. People are more productive because they're achieving the same output with less input. The best way to become more productive, work less, because productivity is output divided by input, right? So no gains in total output, but people are saving time. And when they save time, they're not running to their manager and say, Nikita, can you give me more work, please? I have all this free time now. What can I? Yes, exactly. And if they did, manager wouldn't know what tasks to give me, right? So the established legacy big organizations are all in the same place, and it's very, very hard to kind of change your mind, change the DNA. The organizational chart was accidentally invented by McKinsey 100 years ago. We're still using it. So the logical prediction is that AI native companies that emerge, that aren't structured in the same way, that don't require so many people, disrupt different fields, industries, etc. And then we see a change in how we work. It might take 5, 10, 15 years. my advice to people who are interested in becoming prediction gurus or futurists is always predict outcomes that are at least 50 or 100 years in the future. So everybody's dead or forgets about it. But it's going to take some time. And if I look at what has happened since AI went mainstream in November 2022, not that much has happened. People are hiring fewer people. CFOs are looking for 5-10% productivity gains. And people are saying, well, you're supposed to be using these tools, so you're supposed to be more productive, so I need fewer people. And we haven't figured out how to reoccupy the time that people are saving. I mean, you go to Denmark, for example, the 4-day week is universal there. Nobody works 5 days, and it hasn't had any impact. Here, a lot of CEOs said, well, I'm already paying people for 4 days, in fact, because I'm working 5. So I think everything has happened. We've been there before. In 1915, I think Maynard Keynes predicted that by the year 2000, we would work only 15 hours a week because technology would have advanced so much that, it's because we are creating more bullshit tasks. And universities are the same. Academics are complaining that students write their essays with ChatGPT, then they're using ChatGPT to grade their essay. Okay, fine. The future of education is that, but we have to figure out how to occupy our time productively after AI takes care of all the low value activity. Whatever AI automates is a commodity and it's low value. How do you differentiate? Yeah, sure, leadership culture and all that, but we need to figure it out.
About figuring out and about time.
Yes.
What are your final parting thoughts before we go to the pub?
Everybody join us. That's it. Yeah. Yes.
All right, good people. So, round of applause for Thomas. So, we will be. Round of applause for Thomas. Nice. So, first of all, I would like to say, Helen and D'Artagnan, can you please come up? So, two wonderful people who made this event happen, who were behind the scenes making everything run so I can be narcissistic as I can be. Wait. But the key thing is, if Helen and D'Artagnan, you can just say a couple of words about yourself to this fine people. No pressure.
I'm going to be the second.
Okay, so just to say a little bit about D'Artagnan. D'Artagnan often lives up to his name. He always comes to my rescue. So whether it was helping me last moment organize a PSYOP talent show in Denver, coming to help me 24 hours administration of global work and organizational psychology online, or helping out today on Psychometrics Fest. So what can you say? Can you tell us about your name? Story.
All right, so we're going to open up with the name. Y'all tell me if the mic goes out, because now I'm not back there to actually be able to tell. So my name is D'Artagnan. I will take any pronunciation of it, though. As I've told some of you already, in every social environment, people do not repeat what I say, D'Artagnan. They repeat what they hear other people say. So D'Artagnan, chrysanthemum once. That's what I'm called. And what I love is that when we actually stick with that, I can go to the grocery store and I'll hear someone say, hey, Dartigan, and I can pause and narrow it down to, okay, that was my name in human resources management. So you're one of these 20 people. My mom believed, when I'm from the United States, I'm from Texas specifically, and my mom was born below the poverty line, and she was always told, we may be nothing right now, but we used to be French royalty. So she is the first, yeah, I know. She's the first person in our family to ever go to college. She got her degree. She ended up raising me, named her child D'Artagnan, would try as hard as she could to speak to her children in French. When it's like, get in the car, it comes out in English. But she tried French as best she could. And then we ended up moving to France when I was younger, and I got to live there for a while. And I can get by in French. I can express myself in English, but I can still communicate in French. We did a DNA test, and it turns out that, like, guess what? We're not actually French. But this myth. Oh, there is. I've been. I was excited. Such a disappointment. But this myth that we were told of course we're French royalty. Diane Marie Lassion, of course she's French. That led to her going to college. That led to me believing I'm something special and also going to college. I recently graduated from Columbia University. I graduated with a master's in IO psychology. So now I've had the confidence to try out theater, which I did for 10 years before going the IO route, which may be obvious in how I move my arms. And the fact that I'm here, the fact that I get to do OD and L&D consulting in the States, the fact that, by the way, I'm eligible for a high potential individual visa at the UK and looking to relocate, I am here, Germany. I am so lucky to have got these experiences from my mom and been told this story of who I am, because then I can at least look at my resume of experiences and say, well, I'm not really French, but hey, I can speak the language and I've done these other things. And that context is what even led to one cold day in the Rocky Mountains. I met Nikita. We got to work on a talent show together. And since then, I hope I just keep getting invited to all his events because they're rather lovely. So thank you all for listening to me. And thank you, Nikita.
So now we had the extroversion, and now we can go to somebody more introverted. And I always say introversion is extroversion, but with good taste. So
Thank you. So my name is Olena, or English version of it is Helen. So, well, I wanted to say that I've got a degree in teaching, so teaching middle school, and standing in front of the room of kids and teaching them something is way easier than standing here right now and not teaching you, but just introducing myself. But exposure therapy, okay. Yeah, and I'm doing my final year in psychology here in Uni of Greenwich. And this was a really nice opportunity for me. Thank you, Nikita, for inviting me. And it was really lovely to listen to some of the speeches. And yeah, really enjoyed it. And thank you very much.
well, in the beginning of the day, you said you wanted to potentially pursue a career in occupational psychology. Is it still the case at the end of it?
Yeah, it definitely is. And after today, I definitely realized that I need to work on being more extroverted and doing some more networking. But yeah, well, I'm getting to it.
Yes, and Helen did something that very few people do. She completed 2 degrees at the same time. She was completing a degree in English teaching in Ukraine at the same time as doing a psychology degree in Greenwich. So if you, the colleague who scores clearly 95th percentile above on conscientiousness, which predicted his performance at work, you know who to contact. So can we just give a massive round of applause to our volunteers? And well, by the way, tomorrow you'll get messages from D'Artagnan. So what we're going to do after today, we're going to create a LinkedIn chat groups with all of you in it, and as well as people online, so you can connect with each other. If you don't want to be included in the chat groups, contact me by the end of today in LinkedIn and say, Nick, stop with your extroversion, get out. But otherwise, tomorrow you'll be first you'll get an invitation from D'Artagnan to connect, and then will be put into the chat group so you can continue the conversations. But none of this would be possible without the wonderful venue. And we have Polina from Wireless Space. Can you say a couple of words about yourself and about the venue? And how can people potentially rent this space and do their shenanigans in here? 1 second. The mic is for online.
I'm actually Emily. Polina she's gone home for the day. I would forgive Nikita, but we have actually met a few times. So there we go. I'll keep it very, very brief, but we're so, so pleased to have had you all here today. And it's been a pleasure hosting you. Nikita, I met a couple of months ago through someone else and got recommended. And It's been so fabulous having you here. A very, very brief bit about Waller Space. We are completely independent. We've been going for 25 years, and this is one of 4 buildings that we have. Any new contacts and business that we can get in would be absolutely fabulous. We have taken a hit after COVID, and we're building back and becoming stronger than ever. So anyone that you can push forward that needs anything from a 5-person meeting for 1 hour all the way to big kind of events like this would be absolutely fabulous. We're here to make your life easy and to provide fantastic food and beautiful spaces. So anything is very, very welcome.
Thank you, Emily. Yes. And most importantly, this event would not happen without our wonderful speakers. Round of applause. And everybody who attended today. So before you go, it's 1 book a person. So those of you who I see having 4 books, I appreciate your openness, but pop them back on the table so everybody gets a copy of a different book. We're going to the Brewmaster Pub, which is just behind Leicester Square Station. So it's 37 Cronburns, whatever. It's behind Leicester Square Station. Is Brewmaster. You can find it on Google or Apple. Where Tomas will be speaking about his new book, and we're going to continue the shenanigans till late at night, and there will be booze and food. But otherwise, I just want to say a massive thank you for everybody coming together and geeking out on Psychometrics. What I want you to do now is make sure you take some snacks with you if you want to have a little coffee as well. But most importantly, for the next 10 minutes, just stand up and talk to somebody you haven't met. And what is your actual takeaways from today? Sounds like a plan? Thank you so much, everyone. And see you at the pub.
Well done.